7 weeks. That's how long we spent at the National RV Training Academy, while Jeremy completed both the RV technician and inspector courses. And let me tell you, it was intense, educational, inspiring, and at times heavy. In this video, we're giving you a full review of our experience, from what to expect in the classroom, to the essential tools you'll need, and even what life is like at the on-site campground. If you're thinking about enrolling, we're sharing it all. But we also want to be honest about our time there, and that includes addressing something tragic. Just as we were leaving, a fatal accident occurred right at the entrance to the school and campground. A sobering reminder of just how precious and fragile life can be.
All right, so we're finally done. It was a long 7 weeks there at the NRVTA. So we completed 3 courses technically, but I completed the advanced technician course, which also encompassed the fundamentals course. And I also did the RV inspector course through the NRVIA. And glad to be gone, really. It was a long 7 weeks. And before we go any farther, I just want to apologize for the talking head video inside here. It's kind of boring. We tried to do this outside, guys, but we're in Mississippi.
And there are bugs galore. I mean, we couldn't put on enough bug spray. Maybe we didn't have the right kind, but it wasn't bug repellent. It seemed to be bug attractant.
Yeah, the Mississippi mosquitoes really like the bug spray because we were getting ate up out there, guys. And I like you, but I don't like you that much, so we came inside. I apologize for that. We just don't have another option right now.
I mean, it would have been a good opportunity for me to keep smacking him in the head.
I know, right? So what we want to cover here today is just our experience with that whole program down there with the NRVTA and the NRVIA training. And we want to talk about the campground too.
Yes.
They have a campground that's attached, and we want to kind of cover a little bit of that as well. But mostly what we want to do here is set some expectations for any of you out there who might be considering going through any of these courses, because it's not what I expected, I guess is how I would put that. Now, I don't want to say it was a terrible experience. That's not the case. And we're ready to go because 7 weeks is just a long time for us to be in any one spot. So we're going to cover high level, the schoolhouse, what the courses are like, the campground. She's going to talk a little bit more about that than me because she dealt with it a little bit more. And then we also are going to, in the end, I want to give just kind of my overall opinion of that whole process or the whole program, and do I think it's worth it or not. So without further ado, let's get into it. Let's talk about first getting to the campground itself. We want to start at the very beginning, right? So the kind of specifics on how you actually get into the campground, because it can be a little tricky.
Yeah, so we're just going to go briefly. We'll discuss this more in depth later, but if you're coming from the north versus the south, you just need to be aware that you're going to bypass the campground, and about a half mile up the road, you're going to make a U-turn. Be aware that you're making a U-turn onto a 75-mile-an-hour road.
And there's a hill there too.
Yes, there's a hill, so that kind of limits your visibility. So just be extra cautious right there. And then also be extra cautious when you're getting ready to turn into the campground, because again, it's a 75-mile-an-hour road and there's no turning lane. So we would recommend putting your blinker on and slowing down well in advance. You'll pass a rest area on your right after you make that U-turn. Go ahead and put your turn signal on and start slowing down right about there. Give people behind you plenty of notice that you're slowing down. And we will discuss at the end of the video exactly why that is so important.
Yeah, we have a very kind of sobering example of what happens on that road when people aren't paying attention and how dangerous it can really be just trying to get into that facility. So whether you're towing or not. So hang around till the end, and we'll kind of discuss that and walk you through what we saw while we were there about just getting into that place. So let's get into the campground, because that's a lot of people are going to have questions about that. So the campground itself is only available for people that are going through the school. So it's not just a public campground that anybody can stay at. And to be honest with you, it is not a cheap campground. either. There's not a lot of amenities, so the price that you pay is really what you're paying for is the convenience of being located right there at the school. If you are at the farthest site away from the schoolhouse, it's maybe a 5-minute walk, and if you got a bicycle, it's like it takes like a minute to get from one end of the campground to the other.
So you're paying for the convenience because you're right there. And the part of that convenience is not having to drive in every day. The closest campground is about 12 miles away. And I did kind of the math. So if you've got a big truck, you're looking at, on average, the cheapest about $24 in gas per week, just doing one round trip. So that's part of the convenience. And then the Texan RV Park also accepts mail. So you can get any sort of mail while you're there. And that means that if you forgot a tool, if you want to buy something while you're there, it's super easy to get your mail.
It's just convenient being on site, but you're paying a premium for it. So just keep that in mind. So not only do they have the campground, but they also have cabins and duplexes that are available for rent. Those are really expensive, in my opinion. You could be talking what, $600 a week for some of these.
$600 minimum.
Yeah, so for some of these cabins, and some of them are big, some of them are not so big. Some of them are like living in a closet. So, but just keep that in mind. There are several options. You can stay on site, pricey. You can stay off site, save a little bit of money, but it's not as convenient. Or you can go the most expensive route and rent one of their cabins. They are nice. They're right on the water, but you're really paying out the nose for them.
Now, one way to save money, though, is they do offer work camping. So if you bring your spouse or significant other and they don't have anything else to do during the day, you know, they don't work from home, whatever, call the office or email the office and ask about work camping, because they only need a few people, you know, at a time. But work camping offers you the opportunity for a very minimal output of hours to get a free campsite while you're there. So that obviously would greatly reduce your expenses. One note on that, you are not cleaning bathrooms except for the classroom bathrooms. So the inspector building, when it's in session, you go in and you clean it at the end of the day. That's it. You're not cleaning bathhouses. You're not cleaning pit toilets. It's mainly office work, you know, restocking the store, whatnot. So think
about if you've ever thought about work camping, think about all the things that you think like, oh, I wouldn't want to do that. You don't have to do that when you're work camping there. It's like she said, it's a lot of office work. The worst is cleaning the bathrooms in the inspector house, like she said. But having used those restrooms, at the end of the day, they were all pretty clean. So not a big deal work camping there. All right, so let's move on to more expectations for the school itself. The first thing I want to talk about is that big old tool list that they send you, that they say you need all these tools to come here. Well, guess what? You don't. If you do get enrolled, they're gonna send you this huge tool list, and it's kind of confusing to go through. But what I want to do is tell you the exact tools that you need for the first, say, 5 weeks of training there, and that's the advanced technician course. That course encompasses 2 courses really. It's the fundamentals and then the advanced technician training. You can make it through all 5 weeks of that training with some very basic tools. So number 1, a number 2 Phillips head screwdriver. Number 2, Robertson bit. If you don't know what that is, that's what the square screws that are everywhere in an RV, the square head screws, and a multimeter. With those 3 tools, you can make it through the entire class. Now, I want to go a little bit deeper into the multimeter because it needs to have some very specific functions. So first and foremost, it needs an AC and DC clamp, because a lot of what you're going to be doing is measuring the amount of current running through this cable or that wire. So you need to have those clamp meters. The second thing you need to be able to do with your meter is to measure capacitance. And I mention that because I don't want you to go buy some cheap meter from like AutoZone or something. You spend $15 on it and take it here, and then you find out it doesn't work. So make sure that it can measure capacitance. And then the last thing, which is not 100% necessary, but it would be nice to have while you're there, is a meter that has a low impedance mode. I'm not going to go into what that is, but you'll know it if you look at the little dial on your meter and it says low Z. That means it has a low impedance mode, and it's just kind of a nice thing to have while you're there. Not needed, but nice to have. The next thing you need with your multimeter is thin-tipped probes, because you're going to be doing a lot of measurements on circuit boards and wiring harnesses and so forth, where you need that thin-tipped probe to be able to take your measurement without ruining something. And then the last thing I'll say is be familiar with your multimeter before you get there. I know that a lot of you people watching have probably never even touched a multimeter before. So here's what I would recommend. Open up the package, take out the user's manual, and just read it. Because multimeters, in my experience, generally have pretty good instruction manuals in them. And so if you just go through and read what each of the functions are on that multimeter, you will at least be able to recognize some of the terms and words that they're saying when you start the class. So what it all boils down to is don't show up and be that person who's still got the multimeter in their package and have never even touched a multimeter before. You're going to be behind from the get-go. The last thing I'll say about the tools in general here is that even though you only need that very basic set of tools to make it through that entire 5-week technician course, every tool on that list you are going to need once you get out into the field as a certified technician. You're going to need all those tools, and you're probably going to need a lot more than that, but you're certainly going to need all of those. And then as well, for the inspector course, when you look at all the tool requirements for the inspector course, there's going to be a bunch of required and a bunch of optional stuff. You definitely need all of the required tools for the inspection course. Don't try and cheapskate on that one, because you're going to have to be borrowing tools from somebody, which is just going to slow you down in your process of actually inspecting RVs while you're there, because you will do a full inspection on 2 RVs if you go through the inspection course while you're there. Okay, enough about the tools. I think you get it. So let's move into the individual courses. So the first one that we went through, that everybody goes through really, is the fundamentals course. This is a 1-week course. It's very basic about RVs, and in my mind, it's really geared towards people who own RVs who want to know just a little bit more about them. So maybe you've bought your first RV and you've had it out a couple of times and you just want some more basic information. What kind of electrical systems there are? What does the plumbing system look like? What does the propane system look like? Those kinds of things. It's not going to teach anybody how to fix anything in their RV. Also, during the fundamentals class, there is a business course. I use air quotes there very loosely. They call it a business course, and they do it Monday through Friday during fundamentals week from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. and spouses or significant others are welcome to come. And I'll just let Candace talk a little bit about that, because I don't think that I don't think attending that whole thing is necessary.
Yes. So before you even arrive, they will send you kind of a welcome packet. And in that welcome packet, you will have a link to access that business course. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you are just watching. If you go in person, you're just watching the videos that you can watch online. They're just replaying them. They're recorded several years ago, so you don't have to wake up and be down there at 7 a.m. to watch videos. If you are interested, though, in gleaning some of this information, though, the 2 times that I would say would be beneficial would be the Wednesday lunch and learn and the Friday morning session, because that's when they actually talk about RV specific. The rest of the week is very general. But on Wednesday, they bring in an inspector and they bring in a technician, and they kind of do a day in the life. And so that kind of gives you an idea of kind of what to expect in either one of those roles. And then Friday, they bring in the numbers. They talk about, these are the things that you're going to need to have just to get your business up and running. You're going to need a website, you're going to need a logo, you're going to need business cards, whatever. So they break all that down and give you some kind of general pricing for all of that. So if you don't want to wake up at the crack of dawn, you can skip the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning sessions. Just go to the Wednesday lunch and learn and the Friday morning session and
be done with it.
Yeah, access the rest of it online and do it on your own time.
And then the only thing I have to add to that is If any of you guys know who Zig Ziglar is, right? This business course, I feel like we all got Zig Ziglar. Zig Ziglar was like this motivational speaker. He got you all fired up, and then you're like, oh, I got to go buy all this stuff, right? That's what this business course is. They don't really tell you how to do anything. They give you just enough information to go, wow, I don't know anything about this. Let me go buy all their stuff. Totally not necessary. Most of the stuff you can find on YouTube if you want to. So just be aware that it's they're not really teaching you anything. They're just trying to. It's a sales pitch. They're trying to get you to buy something, which, by the way, is very common throughout your entire experience there at the NRVTA. That's all I'm going to say about it. Just know that everybody's going to try and sell you something. All right, let's move on to the advanced technician course. Now, the overwhelming majority of the time that you would spend in the technician course is going to be learning about and troubleshooting electrical controls for things like air conditioners, water heaters, furnaces, refrigerators, all of the big major appliances that you have in your RV. That's the overwhelming majority of time that you spend there. There's 1 week that you learn about more mechanical stuff like slide outs and hydraulic systems and a little bit about propane systems. But for the most part, it's all about electrical controls and how to diagnose and fix them for all of those appliances. So let me back up just a little bit and talk about the course structure. So like I said, the advanced technician course is 4 weeks long. And there are kind of 4 courses within the advanced technician course. So you have air conditioners and heat pumps, refrigerators, exterior systems, and then water heaters and furnaces. Those are basically the 4 classes that you're going to take in the advanced technician course. Now, there's a good mix in all of these different classes between classroom instruction and lab time. And by lab time, I mean actual hands-on diagnosing, troubleshooting, and kind of sometimes repairing these machines. So if you're not super familiar with a lot of these components or appliances in an RV, you're going to get plenty of hands-on time to do that. And then the only thing I would add to that is that they do have very good structured troubleshooting processes that walk you through how to diagnose and repair all of these different components. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is don't sweat it too much. Use your instructors, use the lab time as much as you possibly can, and you'll be fine. Moving on to the inspector course. And I've only really got one thing to say about the inspector course at this point, and that is that they don't really teach you how to inspect an RV. And what I mean by that is if you're doing an inspection on an RV and you're looking at the seals, or you're looking at the lap sealant around all of the different roof components, or you're looking at the caulk that's running around the edges of the windows, they don't teach you what to look for when you're inspecting those items. I think it's just kind of expected that you already know how to look at those things and what you're looking for, the cracks in the sealant or the dried out slide seals. I think they really just expect that you already know what to look for based on attending the fundamentals class and or the advanced technician class. So what that means is that the inspector course is almost entirely based on using the software to create your inspection report. And I have some opinions on that software, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So just be aware, you're not really going to get taught how to inspect an RV, and you're going to spend most of your time in the classroom learning how to use the software. All right, and I don't know if I said this earlier, but this is just our experience while we were there. We were there for 7 weeks. We just left a few days ago. They may be making improvements, going forward from then. But I just want to make it clear, right? I'm only talking about my experience and my opinions of what it was like while we were there. So speaking of that, let's get to my opinions, because we all know that's the only opinions that count, matters. Right? So number one, there's a lot of wasted time in general. And that time could be and should be used to spend more time working on things or spend more time talking about how things work. And when I say there's a lot of wasted time, what I mean is there's a lot of chit chat and stories that are being told that are just totally outside the realm of either working on or inspecting an RV. I really just feel like they need to focus more on the topic and less on all of the other stuff that they talk about. So just keep that in mind when you're here, that unless they change things before you get here, there's a lot of time that's really just kind of sitting around going, can we please get back to the topic at hand? The second thing that I have a really strong opinion on is all the sales pitches. Everybody's going to try and sell you something. So they all describe themselves as serial entrepreneurs. That's not my term for them. That's how they refer to themselves. So they all own multiple businesses. They're all trying to either sell you a product or a service. Now, having said that, during the week of the exterior systems class, that instructor has some very good products to sell. All the other stuff that they're trying to sell you there, you can totally do without. My biggest problem with all of this is I don't feel like they should be peddling all this stuff to us as students when we come through there. We've paid a bunch of money to be there to learn how to be a technician or an inspector, and that's what we need to focus on, not them trying to peddle all of their crap to us. Now, let's get back to just accessing the campground and the schoolhouse there, the facility. We wanted to get a little bit more in detail about that because we really feel strongly about this, and we want to show you an example of why it's a dangerous situation just getting into this place, and something that happened as we were leaving. So two things to keep in mind is, number one, you're pulling in with a big rig. You could be pulling in with a big rig. We pulled in with a 45-foot RV in tow. And I remember, just doing it for the first time, it was a little bit unnerving pulling into this place because, like I said, it's a 75-mile-an-hour zone. There's no turning lane. And then when you pull in, it's a right-hand turn, and it's an immediate steep uphill, and you can see actual drag marks on the pavement when you pull in. So you know that people have been dragging their RV bumpers as they pull in. So you're trying to pull in a controlled manner, but you got 75-mile-an-hour traffic whizzing by. And we know that 75-mile-an-hour speed limit means they could be doing 80, 85, or even 90 miles an hour on that road, talking on their cell phone, texting, whatever it is that people do to get distracted while they're driving.
So we were preparing to leave Sunday morning, and we were just about to hitch up. We had everything done, animals in the truck, slides in, and Jeremy came around the side of the rig and said, we're not going anywhere because there was a major accident at the entrance to the campground, that there were people stuck inside of a vehicle, and it was probably going to be several hours before we could get out of there. And so we walked down, and we had been afraid of this the entire time that we were there. I mean, like Jeremy said, just pulling in, and then anytime we left to go get groceries, anything. I mean, I was so nervous because people are just going so fast and they don't pay attention.
So we went down and to check out the accident. And we didn't want to look like a couple looky-loos down there, just out with our cell phones taking videos and pictures and stuff. But we did because we wanted to pass this along. We already knew this was going to be something we were going to talk about in our video because, by the way, this is not the first time this has happened. We were shown pictures of a different accident that happened basically the same way. So we knew we were going to cover this. So we went down and we got some video, we got some pictures.
Yes.
And so essentially what happened was
a fifth wheel was pulling in to the schoolhouse entrance, and they were rear-ended by an SUV. And unfortunately, the SUV was wedged underneath a portion of the RV. And also, unfortunately, and because of that, there was a fatality. The passenger, not the driver. We haven't heard anything about the driver. Both of them were taken to the hospital along with at least one of the passengers in the tow vehicle that was pulling the fifth wheel. And it's absolutely horrific. So we were already planning on talking about this anyway, kind of as a, hey, really be careful when you're turning into the schoolhouse, but also, hopefully the right people see this.
Probably not, but you know.
Probably not. We're not that big.
Yeah, but the point is we wanted to show you these images, and they are a little bit disturbing. I get it, but we wanted to show them to you because it really is that dangerous pulling in. Like I said, this is not the first time this has happened. So we just want you guys to be aware of this. We'd hate for anything to happen to anybody else when they pull in there. So just be careful and be aware of what's going on if you're trying to pull into this facility. So we don't mean to leave this on a bad note, but we just wanted to pass that information along. Just my quick final thoughts on the whole experience is, was it worth it? Yeah. I mean, in the end, you get a piece of paper coming out of that whole schoolhouse saying that you're a certified technician. It is the whole program is not cheap. I would say that.
Not cheap.
It's not cheap. You know, we had a good time, but we were ready to go. And we've had a couple of strange days since then, actually. So we hadn't been underway in 7 weeks. So we had everything planned out for the day. We were going to shoot video, doing this, that, and the other thing. And then the accident happened, kind of threw everything off. And then we got to our destination, and it was not nice. So we moved on. We found another place up the road, I don't know, 40 minutes or so up the road. And it was okay. It was okay. Let's just put it that way. So that was kind of a strange day. And then the place we're in right now, we're not in a great site. It's muddy. It's gross.
The site itself is not good, but there are other sites here that would have been much better. The ground is just a mucky mess, and they put us in possibly the most unlevel site. Yeah.
What really topped it off was that the septic connection is higher than my tanks.
In the mud.
In the mud out there. So messing around with that. So yeah, I had to empty the kitchen gray tank by basically letting a bunch of water into the hose and then draining the hose, and then lifting the hose, draining it out, letting it. It was stupid. I was not happy.
Bugs.
Yesterday. Bugs.
Yeah.
So it's been a strange couple of days after being stationary for 7 weeks, but we'll get back into the groove of things.
Yes.
So anyway, hope you got something out of this video. If you are thinking about attending any of those courses down at the NRVTA and you want more information, you have questions for us, we'd be happy to answer any questions, provide any information that we can, maybe even give some more opinion on that on that whole experience. So if you do have questions, feel free to reach out to us. We'll put our email down below.
Will be down in the description.
Our email is down in the description. I think it's something like
fairwindsrv2022@gmail.com. You can also pop it into the comments. I'm sure if you have a question, you're not the only one. So,
but if you don't want to put it in the comments, feel free to reach out to us via email, and we'll get back with you. We've got a lot of opinions on that experience down there. Again, hope you got something out of this video. Hope you liked it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and while you're down there, hit the bell button to make sure that you get notified of all of our future videos. And until that future video, happy camping and stay safe out there, guys.
Absolutely.